Yeah, here I am, the original HBIC, Katie motherfucking Boyd. And on today's podcast, we're going to get kind of dark. We're going to go down into the depths of hell. Don't turn off this podcast just because you heard this, because I promise you this is going to be so awakening and inspiring, and your soul is going to feel so alive by the end of this podcast. That is my absolute promise to you. And we're going to be talking about how to resurrect yourself. And this is something that I have been working on for the last, I would say, 6 months. Ever since my dad passed away, something inside me has just clicked in my brain. And I got all these incredible downloads over the last couple of months just about where, not only where I should be going as a human, but where we should be going as a collective, especially HBICs from all across the globe. So you're going to want to put on your rubber undies for this one, because it's going to be a bumpy, wet ride. But I promise you, by the end of this, you are going to feel like $1,000,000 and you are going to be so motivated and inspired. So let's get to it. Okay, so where does this whole resurrection idea, thought come from? So I have been doing a massive, I guess we're going to call it a glow up to KBMFC, which I have owned for the last 25 years. I went directly from high school into the fitness and wellness and beauty space, which was something so near and dear to my heart because I had always competed in pageants and always had to, whether I liked it or not, had to be really into my physical appearance and also my health. And, having a company for 20 plus years, you got to always iterate. You have to curate. You have to start thinking outside the box, because not only do things get stale and stagnant for you as the person that's creating the brand and giving value and service, but it can also get super stagnant and stale with the people who are consuming your product or your brand or your offerings. And so the last couple of months, I've really done some super deep diving spiritual work. And I haven't been really talking about it in public, but I'm here to share everything now because I'm the kind of person as well. And I wasn't always like this. I had to learn this the hard way. But I like to do things and get things done before I tell people about them. So obviously, if you follow me on Instagram, and if you don't, go to Katie Boyd Ambitchious. Make sure you spell the word ambitious correctly to kind of follow me along the journey of the glow up of KBMFC, which, by the way, 25 years ago, it was the Misfit Club. Then when I had my television show Wicked Fit on E! Bravo and Style, it ended up being Katie Boyd's Misfit Club because some biatch sued me because she had some fucking wimpy ass, bitch ass blog. Yes, this is real deal. This is what happens when you own a business and you have money. People come for you sometimes. It's just part of the world that we live in. But this girl came to me and she wanted to sue me because she had a blog called like Ms. Fit something or other. And the way to make sure that you protect your intellectual property is to call your brand names that no one else would call it, right? So that's why we added the name Katie Boyd, which is proprietary to me and my company. And then over the years, working with Miss America, Miss USA, and Miss Universe, I kept with Katie Boyd's Misfit Club because that was a brand that was so tied to the global brand, which was Wicked Fit and being syndicated all over the globe. And by the way, guys, if you're in certain countries, Wicked Fit is just coming out. It's so freaking crazy. It debuted in 2012, I think, 2012 or 2011. And still to this day, I'm getting not only fan mail, but I'm getting jail mail, which that's a whole other story for a different day. Yes, men write you letters from jail. I have a whole box of them. So anytime my self-esteem is low and I'm feeling kind of shitty, I go into my jail mail box and I read how much these guys want me. I know my husband's like, please don't tell anybody about your jail mail box. I go like, it's just hilarious. I just love it. Thank you. Keep the jail mail coming. Keep all the fan mail coming too from all across the globe. And so that was for a really long time, the Katie Boyd's Misfit Club. So it came from the Misfit Club to Katie Boyd's Misfit Club. And then it turned into KBMFC, which is just like what we call it. All of the girls at KBMFC call it KBMFC. And then in the last couple of months, I really deeply desired to jump all in on wellness. So you guys, if you follow me again, you guys know I'm super into health. I'm so into fasting and biohacking and exercise and somatic work and breath work and sound healing and spiritual healing. And then also the healing that comes along with being part of a community of like-minded women. And so, oh, and by the way, I also work with a ton of women in the beauty and wellness space. And during this glow up, I actually put in a 5-person infrared sauna and a whole room that's just dedicated to aesthetics and body work and healing, which I cannot wait for you guys to see what we've created. It's going to blow doors, and it's going to, in my opinion, change the wellness center world. And I think it's going to really put it on its head. That is my intention for the glow up of the KBMC wellness space. So stay tuned for that. But I'm going to land the plane in a second. But with the creation of KBMFC Wellness and this whole glow up, revamp, rebrand, taking it to the next level, evolving, ascending, I really started thinking about how many times in not only just my life, but we're talking more about career right now, how many times in my career that I've had to die. So I had to let the old Katie die so that the new Katie can be reborn. And it's funny because while I was creating notes for this podcast, I was voice memoing back and forth with one of my clients who I adore. Her name is Olivia Duke. And if you have not checked out her stuff, I will link her information in the show notes. She is just an absolute gem. And we were going back and forth and we were talking about signs and how the universe speaks to you. And she was like, oh, I was on a walk and I found a dead snake. And then I found a live snake, and I don't really like snakes. And I was like, oh my God, snakes are so symbolic of becoming the high priestess, right? Really becoming the alchemizer of the shadow, becoming the alchemist of death and rebirth. And every hero's journey that you've ever followed, whether you've read a book or you've watched a movie or a television show, and it was inspiring and motivating to you, probably all had to do with someone who goes through something really hard, difficult, life-changing, and adverse. It could be loss, it could be the end of something, and they've had to go through the hero's journey so that they can let the old version of themselves die so that the new version of themselves can be reborn. And I was having this great conversation with Olivia, and that inspired me today to talk about how we, no matter what you're doing in your life, whether this is a business, whether you're listening to the Ambitchious podcast because you're a business or a brand, or you have a service or product and you're just feeling a little stagnant and stale, or you're just kind of feeling a little just dead inside, right? Like all the things that used to light you up and make you happy just ain't doing it for you anymore. And there's this passage in the Bible. You guys know I am woo-woo, but I'm also a little Catholic girl. Okay. So I like to kind of bring in different aspects from esoteric and religious aspects. But in Matthew, it says, and this is 18:3, truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. And to me, what that passage in the Bible really means is you have to create. So if you believe in a higher power, as I do, if you believe truly that you are a child of the Most High God, as I do, what did God do? God was a creator. So the reason why most of us in this world are walking around and we're feeling just dead inside is because we're not creating like little children. Remember when we were little kids and we would play like Barbies, we'd play like house or doctor. I don't want to hear any of your dirty doctor stories, so don't even go there. But you guys remember when we actually used our imaginations to entertain ourselves? From the ages of 0 to 7, we're in a theta brain wave state. So pretty much what that means is your brain is oscillating at a very specific vibrational frequency as if you're in a dream-like state. I think there was a Stoic, and I don't remember which one it was, a Stoic philosopher that says, give me a child up until the age of 7 and I will show you the man, or I will show you the woman. And it's because the first 7 years of our lives, we're collecting all this information, but we're also not living in the vibrational frequency of these other types of brainwave states that we find ourselves in when we become young adults and, into our older age, right? We're living in a totally different reality. That's why we can make believe, right? That's why fairy tales are so just infatuating to us. We get so excited, from, I don't know about you guys, but when I was little, watching the Disney movies and things like The Dark Crystal or The Labyrinth or Neverending Stories. I was born in 1981. So for all of my Gen Xers and my millennials, you guys know what I'm talking about, where we could just watch this movie or read this book and we can almost be immersed as if we are living in the movie or the book with these characters. And it's because of the way that our brain waves are oscillating. And I truly believe that. I really believe that to enter the kingdom of heaven, which I don't believe that heaven is like up on a cloud, and I don't believe hell is down below where all the lava is bubbling and you're going to burn in eternal damnation. I actually believe that the three-dimensional reality that our spiritual beings chose to come down to this three-dimensional reality and live as a human and have this human experience. I truly believe that the way that we as three-dimensional humans with our little meat puppets and our soul, I really truly believe that to have a heaven-like experience on this earth, we have to imagine, we have to create, and we have to be like little children. And there was a time in our lives where, it was the last day that we rode our bike in our neighborhood, and it was the last day that you played pretend, and it was the last day that you played with your Barbie dolls. And for all of us on this earth, we always had the last day of something. And then because we're taught by our family of origin, like get your head out of the clouds and stop daydreaming and do all these things, we got that beaten out of us at a young age. And slowly over time, we just had the creativity and the happy energy and that joy that you see in little children. We had it sucked out of us. And the problem is with that is that we had it sucked out of us by people who were dead inside anyways. They were already zombies, right? And because it's our parents or our grandparents or teachers or, whatever, people from church or different clubs and organizations told us like, stop daydreaming. And I was always the girl that got their desk moved in class because I was always talking. It's because fucking school is boring, because there was no imagination. And the classes that we loved the most when we were growing up had these teachers who made it fun to learn, right? So I believe that if we truly adopt what I'm going to be telling you guys today in this podcast, and we pinpoint all the ways that we're showing up in the world that are pulling and sucking that creative, joyful, childlike energy out of our systems, and we start to slowly rebuild and become more childlike, we're going to feel alive and our lives are going to be so ambitious. Okay. So I want to tap into a little other part of the Bible, and it's Genesis 2:2, and it says, on the seventh day, right? Remember this, if you guys are Christian or Catholic or you understand religion to a point, it said, on the seventh day, God rested from all his work and blessed the seventh day and made it holy. And this indicated completion, satisfaction, and sanctifying rest. And a lot of you motherfuckers out there are doing a lot of rest and a lot of real leisurely shit, and you're not using your God-given gifts and talents to give back to the collective consciousness that is every living, breathing being on this planet. And here lies the problem. You're doing a lot of scrolling. You're doing a lot of time wasting. You're doing a lot of masturbation, especially mental masturbation, not just like with your two fingers or your buzzer, your rabbit pearl. That's a throwback. But anyways, you're doing a lot of that and not creating. And here is the problem. This is why we feel dead inside. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to feel like that. And I know what it feels like to be dead inside. And I have to say that when I feel dead inside, it's because I'm doing too little of what makes my soul sing and way too much of the shit that is just depressing and dull and boring, right? Okay, you guys ready for this? So the first thing that I want to talk about is who this podcast today is for. And you may not feel dead inside right now, but I don't care who you are. If you are a living, breathing, three-dimensional entity that is walking this earth, there has been times that you feel dead inside, and there's going to be many times going forward that you are going to feel dead inside. And this is the podcast that you need to come back to over and over and over again and re-listen to when you're feeling that low vibrational, dead, zombie-like stuck energy. Okay. So these are the reasons, and I'm going to talk to you from an emotional, cognitive, physical, behavioral, social, existential, and sensory. And we're going to get into some spiritual stuff too, obviously, because I love the woo. I'm going to be coming at you in all these aspects to talk about that depression and that just kind of low homeostatic, just like, I'm not great, I'm not bad, but I'm just here. I'm just existing. And I don't believe that God, our creator, my creator, put us here to just be existing homeostatically. I think that we're supposed to have highs and lows, but the highs are supposed to be more than the lows. And when you're doing things that make you feel low, it's because you're doing things that make you feel low. And you can't, blame anyone else except yourself. Because remember, here on the Ambitchious Podcast and in the ambitious land that we're living in, at least that's the one I'm living in, we have to take radical responsibility for the reasons that we feel dead, that we feel sad, depressed, angry, anxious, and all those things. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about, and I want you to kind of have like a little rolling tally, or if you are sitting at home and you're journaling or you're taking notes while you're listening to this podcast, I want you to tell me, and you can email me at themisfitclub@gmail.com. That's my personal old Gmail from like the Reagan administration. Okay. I want to know how many of them that you have been experiencing over the last couple of days, weeks, months, maybe even years, that you just felt like, what is the point of this thing that we call life? Okay. So tell me, email me. I want to know. Let's have a conversation, because this is what it's all about. So the first contributing factors of feeling depressed, dead inside, whatever, is you may be going through a time in your life where you're in a chronic stress state and you're allowing yourself to get burnt out. You may have never really truly worked on any unresolved trauma or grief from, your childhood all the way up till recently. You may have been going through or recently experienced true major life transitions and transactions, which come from loss of a role in your life. You could have got fired from a job. Your business could have shut down. You could have had to file bankruptcy. You may have gone through a divorce. You may be an empty nester. You may have just had a child and you're like, oh my God, this is a whole new reality. You may have gotten divorced. I said divorced twice. I meant to say married, because even though marriage is supposed to be this joyful thing, it is a definite life transition, especially if you're used to being single, ready to mingle, right? This could also be loss of a loved one, like a death, or someone may have moved really far away, or you may have had a falling out with a friend or a family member. This can also be social isolation. This can be going through a bout of loneliness. We all go through that. That's normal. That's part of being a human being, right? This is one of the biggest things that I've kind of gone through, other than some loss recently, is kind of like a lack of purpose. Like, what am I really here for? What am I doing? What is like the next version of myself? What does she want? What does she desire? You may have no creative outlets. You may have no hobbies. When you were a little kid, you were like, oh, I used to like to play soccer or do theater, or I belonged to a chorus, or I played baseball. And then all of a sudden you're 40 years old and you're like, well, what are my hobbies? Getting fucking hammered on cheap wine and taking gummies before I go to bed, or like gossiping or watching The Real Housewives, which, by the way, all those things can be fun. But when you're doing it as an outlet to kind of escape your reality, that can be a problem that can cause so many problems down the road. This could be a hormonal imbalance. You guys know that Dr. Sazia and I are doing that Reno. We're creating that program right now at Numi Aesthetics. And there's a huge reason for that. When I went through my hormonal decline, when I was starting to go through perimenopause, I felt like I was crazy. I was like, who is the person looking back at me in the mirror? I didn't even recognize that person. I didn't recognize her physically. And I definitely didn't recognize her emotionally or spiritually or energetically. You could be going through a thyroid problem, or you could have some, medical issues. I know a lot of the women that I work with are going through thyroid issues, autoimmune immune diseases, or just chronic illness in general. You could be an addict, right? You could be struggling with addiction. You could have substance abuse problems. You could be going through a withdrawal. You could be having addiction with sex or pornography or gambling or spending money or whatever. This is all normal stuff that we as humans go through. You could be going through chronic pain. I know, like, my mom had a hip replacement a couple years ago where they severed one of her nerves, and she has had chronic pain since then, and she's had to walk with a walker. By the way, I'm going to do a whole podcast with my mom to talk to you about how she's healing that through using peptides. My mom is not walking with a walker right now because of it, which is incredible. And the doctors at some of the best Boston hospitals said that she'll never probably walk normal again. And it has been one of my focuses in the last couple of months, really helping my mom recuperate and just get better from that experience. But I know that when my mom was really going through it, it's like you have to adapt to this new normal, and it's really scary and it's sad, and it's so hard to have physical impairments when you've always just had a really healthy body, right? Another reason why you could be feeling this depressed, dead feeling is just perfectionism. Okay, that's not a badge of honor, guys, right? It could be learned helplessness. It could be victim mentality. This could be financial pressure, cultural pressure. Maybe you're stuck in lack mindset, not enoughness, and scarcity. It could be passive overconsumption. This is like binge watching television, doom scrolling on social media, right? This could also be a spiritual awakening or a spiritual crisis. This could be a dark night of the soul, like we call it in the spiritual world. This could also be a loss of faith. Maybe you grew up Catholic or Christian or Muslim or Buddhist or Jewish, and you're just like, I don't really align with that anymore. And that's hard, because if your whole life is, hey, I'm this one way religiously, and this is what I believe, and then all of a sudden something happens and it shakes your foundation, that can really put you in a bad place, right? Now let's move on to the emotional experience, where it could help you really feel that numb, dead inside, zombie-like feeling. So this could be just that numbness, that emotional flatness that we can all feel. This could be an inability to feel joy, sadness, anger. I know that I've gone through this in the past, where it's like, I don't even know what I feel. I don't even have feelings. And yes, I'm Aquarius and I'm a little emo and I can be a little dead inside and a little melancholic, but I know that it's just deeper than that. This could be, there's a word called a hedonia. It's spelled Hanhedonia, and that is just a fancy word for a loss of things that used to just please you, like they just no longer do it. That's how I was feeling about KBMC Wellness before it turned into the wellness center. I just started being like, what am I doing here? I make so much money and I don't even have to leave my house. And I'm going and I'm working and I'm like, what am I trying to achieve now? Like, I've already got the t-shirt 10 times over. I've already created these uber successful brands over the last 25 years of my brand and business life. And it's like, just the old things they just don't get you wet anymore. And that's how I was feeling about KBMC Wellness and that's probably why, and we're going to get into that later, why I chose to start doing a glow up. You're right. Doing a whole revamp and renovation on that space. This could be just an underlying persistent sadness, hopelessness feeling, right? Or despair. This can be irritability. It could be low frustration tolerance, apathy. That's never good. Apathy sucks. And it could also be this feeling of like chronic low level dread or vague melancholy. Like, I don't know, I just feel kind of like Wednesday Addams. I don't know where this is coming from. But this could also be like, I was talking to someone the other day and they were like, every Sunday around 3:00, I get this like impending doom. Like, I don't want to go back to work, which most people in the industry call it like the Sunday scaries. And guys, if you have the Sunday scaries, it's because you're working or you're creating or you're doing something that is not aligned and it's not resonating with the frequency of your soul any longer. And a lot of people especially when they have a business or they're have a career or they're working, you know, they feel this for 20, 30, 40 years. And I don't know about you, but like nothing feels worse to me than going for 20, 30, 40 years to a job that just doesn't feel like it's for you. And that is so scary. And I felt like that before. And that's why I always try to resurrect myself. Like, how am I going to let the old me die so that the new me can be reborn so I don't feel that dread? You know, so many people, they die when they're 87, but they've been dead really, truly since they were 35 because they just stopped growing. They stopped learning. They stopped creating. They stopped iterating and curating, you know? And I know you know what I'm talking about. I know that, you know, a lot of people probably like that. Now we're going to get into the cognitive reasons why you could feel dead inside. So this could be persistent negative self-talk and just hopeless beliefs like, oh, what's the point? The world's shit anyways. You know, I hate my president, or, you know, I don't like this law or this rule, or they're doing this over here. And you just like feel like, what's the point? Right. It could be mental fog. I know for me, when I was going through perimenopause before I started with peptides and hormone replacement therapy and doing the right things for my body, I always felt that mental brain fog. It could be slowed thinking, like your brain just doesn't work like it used to. It could be difficulty concentrating, indecisiveness, lack of motivation or plan or choosing, right? So you're just like, I don't really care. You know, it's like when my husband goes, where do you want to go to dinner tonight? I'm like, yeah, I don't really give a fuck because everything sucks anyways. Or I've already ate that 3 times this week. So like, I don't really care. You choose, you know, you just kind of like give up your power. That can cause a lot of just sadness and just feeling that flat, just kind of like, what's the point energy? It can be when you're ruminating, right? Your brain is on this loop of just rumination. I can't tell you how many girls that I've worked with over my 25 plus years in this industry, they just get stuck in this rumination and they get stuck in analysis paralysis instead of just making a fucking choice. Even if the choice is wrong, at least you made a choice and like you can go back and mid-course correct, but nothing is worse than just like never making a choice, right? This can be feeling of meaninglessness. It can be feeling of past failures always coming up to kind of like bite you in the ass. It's like the ghost of Christmas past. It can be that loss of curiosity, right? When you're a little kid, you're always so curious about like, what does this thing do? And how does this thing fit in here? And as we get older, we lose that curiosity and that imagination, like I was talking about before. And when you don't have curiosity and imagination, you can't visualize the future. And when you can't visualize the future, you can't even imagine yourself being a different person or having a different life, right? This can also be about that disassociation. I can't tell you how much in the past, when I was just feeling dead inside, I was just like, people were talking to me and I was like, the words are coming out of these motherfuckers' mouths. And it's like, wah, 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 wah. It's like Charlie Brown's teacher. I'm just like, okay, yeah, when trying to make the donuts. This can also be, and I've had this a lot with perimenopause, where you have these out of body experiences where you just feel like nothing is real. You're living in a dream state. And it can totally disconnect you from your true self, which is going to make you feel like a dead person. Okay. Now, behavioral changes. These are some things that can come up when you're really needing a good kick in the ass to resurrect yourself, to let the old you die so that the new you can be reborn. This can be withdrawal from your hobbies, your friends, and activities that you once really enjoyed that gave you such happiness, right? And fun and laughter. It can be avoiding social plans and canceling plans and isolating yourself. This is very normal. I feel like this all the time. It's like I'm in a good mood and I tell people, yeah, we'll go over to dinner, we'll do that thing. And then the day comes and I'm like, oh my God, like what kind of lie can I make up? Like, should I have amoebic dysentery? Should I, like fall down the stairs? Like you just create these things for yourself so you can be like, oh, sorry, you know, I tripped on a banana peel and I slipped and I can't come out tonight. That can definitely happen. And I know that you know what I'm talking about. This can also be reduced initiative. That means like you're procrastinating on everything. And procrastination and, perfectionism are two sides of the same coin, which is just low vibrational frequency energy. Satan, the demons, the dark forces are controlling you at that point because you're not going forward in what you should be doing, right? This is also an inability to either start tasks, or once you do start them, you like just lose interest. And you're just like, yeah, you might have like that ADHD where you're like, okay, I have all these great ideas and I've started all these tasks, but I don't ever finish them. And I don't know about you, but how the fuck can you feel joy when you have like 50,000 tabs open in your computer, which is your mind, and like you've started all these things and all these projects and then you've never finished them? So your brain stops trusting yourself to actually get the job done. And then you're like, you know what? Who gives a shit? I may say I'm going to do all these things and I may get ready, and I'm always just getting ready to get ready. And then I never do the thing. And that is going to keep you in a state of just death and just flatness and numbness and just like feeling like a zombie, right? That low hum of just like, yeah, yeah, the mediocre energy, right? Now let's get into some physical or somatic symptoms of this energy, which I think is so important. You know, we teach somatic exercises and movement at KBMC Wellness for this very reason, because it starts to awaken your body. And when you have these physical and somatic symptoms, you are going to feel just like flat, flat as a pancake or flat as my ass. Let's just be honest. So physical symptoms that show up when you're in this energy is fatigue, right? Low energy. You just feel heavy, just like, meh, right? You feel like you're dragging weights behind you. It's almost like Jacob Marley in the Christmas Story, where he's dragging all the chains and all the boxes filled to the brim, right? It's like that is a metaphor for just the depression and the fear and the not enoughness and the lack. This can also show up as aches and pains, headaches, digestive issues, and there's no like clear cause for it. You're not like, oh, I have aches in my body because I worked out, or I shit my pants because I ate a bunch of Taco Bell. There's like no reason for it. It just happens. It's a physical manifestation of how you are feeling energetically. This can also be a very slow movements, slow speech. They call it psychomotor retardation. That's like the actual name for it. This could also be restlessness, because so it can be the opposite end of the spectrum where you're just like fidgety all the time and you can't sleep and you're restless and you're kind of like, almost like that manic energy. This can also be changes in your libido. You don't really want to get laid. You're just like, yeah, I'll take or leave the dick. It's not really doing it for me either way, right? Like, who cares? Like, I'm dead inside anyways. Who wants to get laid, right? And this can also be in a weakened immune system, and you can be frequently ill. So a lot of the times when I meet people that are like always sick, like I've had clients in the past where they're like every other week they have some kind of cold or flu, or they've picked up the latest virus, the latest bug. It's like, yeah, because you're low vibrational. And what people don't understand is no sickness, illness, and disease can happen in your body when you're in a high vibrational frequency state. Don't fucking at me. It's true. Think of all the times in your life where you've gotten the sickest. And you're like, oh, yeah, I was really going through a hard time in my life and I let my immune system get so low and I was just in a bad place and then I got sick, right? That's what happens. Now let's talk about the social and the relational effects of this energy. So this could be the feeling of constantly being misunderstood and always having to prove yourself to people, like always trying to like explain yourself to people, like, no, I didn't mean it like that way. And it's like, what the fuck? Who cares? Right? Feeling invisible, feeling alienated, difficulty maintaining intimacy in your relationships or emotional reciprocity, showing up for friends the way they show up for you, showing up for your loved ones the way that they show up for you, your coworkers, colleagues, etc. This can be about feeling resentment, which is, to me, the lowest vibrational frequency of anything that we can feel in our bodies. This can be guilt about relationships or feeling like a constant burden on people. And it can also feel like loss of trust or withdrawal from our community or community involvement. Now let's get into the existential stuff, which I just love because, I love a good existential crisis, right? Because what life wouldn't be worth living without a couple of those thrown into the mix. But this can be this just sense that like life is just so meaningless. Like, what is the point? It has no point. This is like nihilism at its finest, right? I study this, nihilistic stuff. I could be a nihilist sometimes. I err a little bit more on that end of the spectrum, but it's not right because life is supposed to be this beautiful thing. It's not supposed to be a struggle. Okay. This can also be about this loss of identity. Like you look at the mirror and you're like, who the fuck is looking back at me? I don't even know this person anymore. And this can also be about feeling like you're stuck in a role that just doesn't reflect who you are today. Like that's kind of how I've been feeling about KBMFC. It's like, I'm not Katie Boyd Wicked Fit. I'm not KBMFC the pageant girl. I'm not that coach. I'm not trying to like make everyone thin to compete. It's just so much deeper than that. It's about truly showing up for the community and the demographic of women that I'm serving now in this phase of my life. The women who are over 30 and who are going through hormonal changes and who are, just trying to figure out what's the next step for them in every way, shape, and form. Like I talk about in Ambitchious, the 6 life makers, right? This can also be about questioning previously held beliefs and spiritual emptiness. So it's like you may have been brought up in a religion or a mindset, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, like this doesn't feel right to me anymore. And you almost feel like the whole first part of your life up until this point has been a lie. And that is definitely debilitating. And I've been there before, and I'm sure I'll be there again. But right now I'm feeling alive. That's why I'm coming here on the podcast. And I'm imparting this wisdom onto you. Now, let's talk about sensory and perceptual changes, which is so important. This is going to also be, and I've had this recently, and no, it's not Ozempic. Okay. Everyone's like, are you on weight loss medication? No, I'm not. I'm on HRT. I'm working out. I'm watching everything that goes into my body, and I'm doing peptides, and not weight loss peptides, like healing peptides, right? So this can be this dulling of the sensory pleasures that we have. So it's like you don't really care about food that much. Like, alcohol, you used to like to have a couple glasses of wine. You're just like, yeah, it's not really doing it for me anymore. Everything tastes bland. Even the colors of the world are less vivid. It's almost like I equate it to, remember in The Wizard of Oz where they're in Kansas and the tornado happens, the twister, and then they end up in Oz, and then all of a sudden Dorothy comes out of like the house that got plunked down in Oz, and she opens that door and everything is in Technicolor, except you're the opposite. You're living in Kansas in like the doldrums, and you're not living in that Oz Technicolor energy anymore, right? This can also be time distortion, which I know a lot of us in my community, especially on the Ambitchious app where I do a lot of group coaching over there. We talk about time distortion. It's like days just kind of blur together. It's almost like Groundhog Day. You have this like lack of novelty. You feel like you're in an alternate dimension of reality. Time is either super slow or very, very, very fast, right? And this can also just be a reduced appetite for curiosity and learning new things. Like the world just kind of feels muted, kind of feels gray. And you're like, yeah, I don't really care about learning anything new because what's the point anyways? What am I going to do with this information? Now, the inner language that shows up a lot of the times when people feel this dead energy inside of themselves, it can be, and I've said a lot of these things, so I'm just going to, these are notes that I've taken from my own self. So you could say words like, I feel empty inside. I feel numb. I'm just going through the motions every day. Nothing really brings me joy. Nothing really gets me going. Doesn't get me juicy, doesn't get me horny anymore, right? It's like you're just on autopilot, or I don't even recognize myself anymore. You could even just say, I just feel dead inside. I can't tell you how many times I've said that to Matt. Like, I just feel dead inside. He's like, what's wrong with you, babe? Like, I don't know. I just feel dead inside. I just have no spark. Like all the things that used to light me up, they're just like, yeah, not really, it's not really the vibe anymore. You could just be like tired of just life in general. It's just like life. Like Theo Vaughn just once said, like, life just keeps lifing. Just when you think you did it, it's like more life, obviously I'm paraphrasing, but it's true. And you could also just feel like invisible. Like I just feel invisible. I don't feel like I matter. And I just feel trapped in my head. And so if you've ever said those things, then this podcast is going to resonate with you on a very, very, very deep level, because I think that if you're a human being and you're alive, you've had these feelings. And if not, I want what you're taking. Let me know, because hook a sister up. Okay. Is it ketamine? What is it? What's going on? Okay. But everyone I know and I've coached over the years has felt like this, and has felt like this more than a handful of times. Okay. So this is normal. You're not a weirdo. You don't have to go to the nitwit house. You don't have to go, on a grippy sock vacation, into a padded room. This is normal. Okay. Now, obviously, this is not to diagnose or treat anyone, and I'm not a psychiatrist and I'm not a doctor, but this may even have gotten so far ahead of yourself that you may even have, suicidal thoughts. This could also be a place where you're at where you can't even care for yourself or your basic needs, right? You just like don't want to plan anything. You don't want to intend anything because you're like, who gives a shit anyways? It's very nihilistic. This can be also worsening symptoms. You can go into total withdrawal. And let me tell you, and I've been there before, psychosis, disassociation. I mean, even self-harm. I've never been a self-harmer, but I'm not a cutter, but guess what? I've thought about, what would it be like if I wasn't here anymore? Would anyone even care? And I'm being so real. I told you guys that this podcast season was going to be the most raw, real, unhinged, in your face, authentic thing I've ever done. And I know that you guys are listening and you're like shaking your heads wherever you are because I'm speaking truth and I'm speaking from my heart. So obviously, people feel dead inside because modern life often, if not always, strips away meaning, strips away novelty, connection, and honestly, agency. And the things that used to make us feel alive just don't do it anymore. And why does this all happen? So I'm going to tell you from my standpoint why this has happened in my own life. And I'm going to also give you some reasons that maybe I haven't experienced, but I've had clients and friends and family members and colleagues and coworkers experience. So this is just kind of like a compilation of all the things that I have felt and the things that have caused me to feel it this way and have also caused other people who I know and love to feel this way. And I promise you, by the end of this podcast, I'm going to give you real deal ways to come alive and feel alive once more, to resurrect yourself, right? So, what are the common causes of all these feelings? So, it could be just the monotony of your routine. Like every day, it's like time to make the donuts. If you're an elder millennial or you're a Gen Xer or a boomer or even older than that, you guys know what I'm talking about. D&D, Dunkin' Donuts used to have this commercial back in the 70s and the 80s, maybe even the 90s, where it was this little old guy who got up every day and he time to make the donuts. And we loved him. And it was, oh, donuts. Oh, it's so cute. But even when I was a kid, I was like, ooh, this doesn't feel good. Like, this person's just like, time to make the donuts every day. It's this repetitive work, repetitive chores, and there's no novelty in any part of your day. This could also be caused from a lack of purpose or direction. You don't have any goals, and the goals that you do are just so ephemeral. They don't matter, and there may be components to those goals missing, and the goal attainment is not clear, right? There's like, oh, I saw so-and-so on Instagram. She's doing this, so I have to do this too. Or, I work with a lot of estheticians and people will say to me like, oh, I want to be just like Candice Marino, the LA facialist, who's a good friend of mine. And I've coached her for years. And I'm like, no, you're not her. You guys don't have the same human design. You don't want the same things. You're not the same human. You don't have the same lives, right? So it's like, be you. And when you're comparing yourself, or you're trying to be like someone else, that's going to make you feel pretty fucking dead inside. Just saying. Okay. This could also be about social isolation. Weakened relationships and superficial connections reduce a sense of belonging. When you're just around people who are just transactional and, it's just, there's no real reason to have these relationships and everything is just like, hi, how are you? Oh, I'm good. How are you? It's like, there's no depth. There's no pithiness to how we're showing up in the world. That's going to make you feel pretty fucking bad. Okay. Or as I like to say, more fucked up than a soup sandwich. All right. The next one could be you're in a cycle of chronic stress and a burnout state. Okay. Constant demands, exhausting your emotional and creative energy. This could be loss of agency, which is feeling trapped by obligations, finances, or caregiving that erodes your sovereign, autonomous being. I talk about this all the time. I've done full podcasts about this because when you lose your agency, when you're waking up every day to light yourself on fire to keep everyone else fucking warm, that's a problem. That's a pretty fucking big problem. Okay. The next thing is over consumerism and distraction. This is so big, especially guys in our day and age right now. This is so big. I cannot tell you how big this is. Okay. This is about passive consumption, right? Social media, television, the news. Oh my God. Blech. No. Okay. And listen, I love social media. This is the way that we show up now in this day and age. It's the way we market ourselves. It's the way we bring in new clientele and we make ourselves known. But it can also be a trap of just like doom scrolling and comparison and analysis paralysis, and trying to live someone else's life where you're only seeing the fake fucking shit on social media. That's why, like, even on social media, I try to be as real as I possibly can. And I know that it's triggering to people, but I know that God put me on this earth to be a mirror to a lot of people. And I know that that's just the bottom line. So I know how it can feel when you go on social media and you just get fucking triggered 24/7, or you're like, oh, I wish I was on a private jet, or I was driving in a Rolls Royce, or I was, doing a renovation of my company, or buying those Chanel shoes or whatever. And it's like, how the fuck do you know that that bitch just didn't buy them for the gram and then return them? You don't know. Most of those hookers do anyways, right? This can also be about, emotional numbing and unresolved trauma. Like I was saying before, depression, grief, and past wounds are going to make feeling anything difficult. It's just the bottom line. Physical factors that add up to this is poor sleep, inactivity, shitty diet, right? Not hydrating, or you may have medical conditions, or you may just have no motivation and it can blunt your mood, right? That's just the bottom line. Like I was talking about before, but the comparison and the perfectionism trap, which is consistently and constantly measuring yourself against others and avoiding risk, is always going to kill curiosity. I was saying to Olivia Duke today when we were voice clipping back and forth, my business coaching client who's an esthetician from Florida, I was saying to her, whatever is making you feel like your asshole is going to pucker or you're going to throw up, that's the shit you should be running towards. Because remember, guys, nothing good is going to come from a comfort zone. So if you don't feel jarred every day, like because your dreams and what you're doing are so fucking big, then you know that you are not in the right space. And that, of course, you're going to feel like shit. Of course, you're going to feel dead inside, right? And this is also tied in with, and I know that I've been going through this, with aging expectations and role shifts, which are, life transitions. Like you're having a new baby, or your baby is going to be a toddler, or your toddler is going to be a tween, and then a teen, and then a young adult in high school, and then they're going to go off to college, and then you're going to be an empty nester, or your kids are now, in the workforce, you don't get to see them that much, or they're getting married and they're having families of their own, or you're hitting career plateaus, or like me, your parents are getting older and they're starting to get sick, or like my dad passing away. And I know a lot of the girls my age are like, God, it's so hard. You're raising your children, but you're also having to take care of aging parents. And on top of that all, it's like you looking in the mirror and not seeing the same face that you have known your whole life. I was doing a live the other day and I was showing people how fucking tired I was, and my gray hair roots were sticking out like an inch, and I just looked like caca. And it's hard, especially when you've based so much of your life around your looks. That is a fucking trap. I would not recommend, highly do not recommend doing that, which I didn't know any better. And the people around me who raised me didn't know any better. And, whatever, I'm glad that I'm a cutie patootie, but it's not easy as you age and like the next hot young version comes up and you're like, fuck her. It's very much that Samantha Jones energy from Sex and the City, where she's starting to age and like all the hot guys are going for the young girls. And you're just like, man, am I like chopped liver? But it's because we have gotten away from a society that actually looks at aging women and just people aging in general as like, oh my God, how cool is it that you're now stepping into the wise crone, sage, medicine woman energy? instead of like looking at women that are, in their 50s and 60s and 70s and being like, oh, she looks good for her age. It's like, no, we're just in different places and different phases of our lives, but we all have value, and sometimes the elders have more value than the younger people because we are the wisdom keepers. Okay. So I'm going to get a little weird for a second, but I know you guys love weird because I like weird, right? I was talking earlier in the podcast about one of my favorite movies, Neverending Story. And if you don't know what it is, what the fuck? Okay, first of all. And if you're young and you're like, what's Neverending Story? They're doing a reboot, by the way. Like that's how long ago this movie came out that they're actually doing like a whole reboot. But The Neverending Story was a 1984 fantasy film, and it was directed by Wolfgang Peterson, and it was based off a novel, and it follows a boy. Okay. His name is Bastian. I actually wanted to name my first child Bastian. Maybe I'll name my next dog Bastian. But it follows a boy named Bastian who reads this magical book about Atreyu's quest to save Fantasia from this thing called the Nothing. Okay. And the childlike empress in this story, she's dying because no one believes in anything anymore. No one feels alive. Everything is just nothing. Okay. And there's some really iconic elements of this movie and of this book that if you haven't watched the movie, get out there and get it, rent it, buy it. It's life-changing. And if you are a newer person to this planet and you watch Stranger Things, I think it was the 3rd season of Stranger Things when they do the whole like, turn around, look at what you see. Do you remember that whole song? Well, that was one of my favorite songs growing up. And it's Lamal's theme song, okay? And it's The Neverending Story, and it's one of my favorite songs, and it should be one of your favorite songs too. So if you guys don't know the movie Neverending Story, go back to Stranger Things, and that was like, part of the whole season, right? When they were trying to save the world from the Demogorgons and the Upside Down, which is why I love Stranger Things as well. But there is some really rich symbolic stuff, which is psychological and esoteric, which really layers the map of the Neverending Story directly onto why so many adults right now feel dead inside, and how the hero's journey is going to restore the feeling of joy and aliveness and curiosity. Like I was saying before, to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must be like a little child. Okay. So I want to go through, you didn't think that this podcast was going to take this turn, but it is going to, and I promise I'm going to land the plane. It's all going to make sense. Pinky swear. But okay, so the key points of the Neverending Story are in alignment with the world that we're living in right now. And I want you to really listen to me. Okay. Because then I'm going to give you all the ways that we get the fuck out of this energy and we stop believing in the nothing and we start believing in ourselves, because we are Atreyu. We are going through the hero's journey. When our souls decided to come down here and incarnate onto this 3-dimensional earth plane, we chose to go through all of these things, good, bad, and different, so that we could, at the end of our days, whenever that is, reach the culmination of being the hero in our own story. Everyone's story is their own, okay? And no one else can live your life for you, only you. So that's why you have to make very important and poignant decisions in the life that you're living. Okay, so let me break this down to you. So in the Neverending Story, there's this thing called the nothing, which the nothing is just kind of like a metaphor for the loss of imagination and meaning and that childlike curiosity that we all were born with, okay? So symbolically, the nothing consumes Fantasia, which is their reality, whenever people stop believing, when they stop caring, and they stop imagining. So psychologically, in the Neverending Story, it's going to represent nihilism, apathy, burnout, and the cultural forces, which are consumerism and distraction, that hollow out humans' definiteness of purpose and their desire to evolve and grow and learn. Okay. So when your inner life is neglected, the whole inner landscape will vanish. And then the outer landscape is going to feel like What is the point? Okay. So in this book or in this movie, Neverending Story, there are two protagonists. So one is Bastian, who is the reader of the Neverending Story, and Atreyu, who is the hero in the story that Bastian is reading about. And those are two halves to one person because we all have inside of ourselves. Okay, follow the bouncing ball. Let's put our fucking thinking caps on here, people. Let's be smart. Okay. All of us have two halves of one whole of a person. We all have the hero, which is Atreyu inside of us. And we all have Bastian, which is the person who's kind of like watching life from the outside in instead of being in the story, being in the life, who is really experiencing this thing that we call life from firsthand. They're on the outside looking in, which is never a good thing. Okay. So we have the inner imaginative child, who is Bastian, and the active, courageous ego, that is Atreyu. Okay. So the Neverending Story shows that rescuing your outside world requires inner reclamation of your imagination and your creativity and your childlike energy. Okay. Like it says in the Bible, to enter the kingdom of heaven. Hello, right? So imagination must be paired with action and naming. So in the movie Neverending Story, Bastian must give the Empress a new name to save Fantasia. Okay. So now the hero's journey is going to repair the loss of the curiosity and that childlike imagination and that just exuberance. And, like when you're a little kid and it's Christmas morning, you're like, can't wait to get up and open your presents and see what Santa Claus brought you. Or if you lose a tooth, right? You think the tooth fairy came and put money under your pillow, or the Easter bunny, or fucking leprechauns, or whatever shit you're into. Okay. But this is how we repair. And I'm not going to get too much into Carl Jung today, but Carl Jung really talks about, because he's the father of shadow work, which we do a ton of in my Ambitchious app, right? My Ambitchious coaching app. And he talks about individuation. Individuation. It's like taking off all of the masks that society just wants you to wear, and you truly step into your true self, both good and bad, the light and the darkness, right? The brightness and the shadow. To be a 100% integrated human and to have the best human experience as possible, you cannot act like you're perfect and everything is hunky-dory all the time. You have to understand that there are good and there is evil. There is light and there is darkness. There is the polarities, and that is our three-dimensional reality. Ultimately, our three-dimensional reality is based on polarity. Okay, so Atreyu's on this quest, and Bastian is reading about it in this book. And Atreyu's quest is going to mirror the classical monomyth. And what does that mean? It's the call to adventure. It's the call to trials and tribulations and the descent into, right, all of the different things that we go through in our lives that take us into the depths of hell, which is like all the sadness and the grief and the loss and all that, and brings us back into the revelation, the resurrection, and the return. And esoterically, and this is also Jungian, Carl Jung, these trials are all about initiation. It's trials by fire. You guys, how can you have confidence and self-esteem if you've never fucking done anything worth talking about? If you're just talking about it, but you ain't being about it, right? Put your fucking money where your mouth is. So many people on this earth talk about it, but they ain't about it. And the reason why I'm so successful, and I hate to trigger you, it's because I say what I'm going to do and I do what I fucking say. I don't care how long it takes me and who I have to hire and who I have to work with and what I have to do. I am going to do the thing. And maybe I'm a sick fuck, and maybe I am crazy. Like I said, a couple podcasts ago. But the truth of the matter is I understand how this all works. And we have to confront our shadow on the way into this initiatory hero's journey process. Okay. So Bastian's like later arc in this movie And in the book, it's more implied in the book that it is in the actual film, but it's an initiation into the self-authoring of regaining courage, desire, and your identity. And imagination in this tale of the Neverending Story is it's about a generative moral force, because in Neverending Story, Fantasia is created and sustained by stories, by names, and wishes, okay? And this frames creativity not so much as a luxury, but as it's called an ontological, okay, which means making meaning literally brings world into being. So when you do things from an ontological standpoint, that means that everything you do has intention, you give it attention, you use your creation, you use your imagination to take nothing and make it into something. So any person out there who has built a business from nothing, who has created a family that is harmonious, coming from a family that's abusive or trauma inducing. Anyone that's ever done anything that is worth talking about or studying or thinking about has literally made something incredible from literal nothingness, from scraps, from dust, from junk. And when we become adults, we stop creating and we lose this generative power. And that's why we feel like nothing fucking matters anymore. We are literally living in the nothing. And it's being swept away from us right underneath our noses. And how we do that? We do that through confronting our shadow. And in the movie and book Neverending Story, the shadow figure is called Gomork, and he's this scary, like wolf-like character, and he comes during the end of the movie, and he's like in this cave, and Atreyu has to fight him and kill him because he's like, nothing matters. You mean nothing. Nothing means anything. Everything is just darkness and shit and trash. And like, it's just all bullshit pretty much. And Atreyu has to kill this Gomork to pretty much save Fantasia. During the book and the movie as well, he consults all of these wise people. He consults wise figures like Morla, and he endures these near-death experiences, which are 100% necessary for the reintegration and the elevation of the next level of Atreyu. And aren't we all just going through that same thing as we live our life? And so there's all these really cool characters, and if you're like a nerd like me, you'll love this movie and you'll love this book. But my favorite character out of all of them is a luck dragon. His name is Falkor. That's actually what I named my Range Rover. I have a white Range Rover, and that's its name. So fucking weird, but like, I remember setting up my remote car start when I just bought this last car, and it was like, "Do you wanna give your car a name?" And I was like, "Fuck yes, bitch." And I named it Falkor. So every time I start my car from my phone, it's like, "You're starting Falkor." And it just like gives me this little like happy feeling. But all of us have this massive role in our lives that come with luck, right? Always looking on the bright side. It comes from wise counsel and guidance. Why that is why it's so important to have coaches and mentors, okay, to take you to that next level. And also trusted companions, like your ride or die type of people. But Falkor, who is the embodiment of luck and faith, Atreyu is BFFs with this luck dragon, and the luck dragon mentors him through his transformation, and he makes the transformation feel that it's not this solitary thing, and he provides grace and support and real change while Atreyu's going through his hero's journey. And remember, esoterically, these can be inner guides, right? They can be your angels, they can be God, they can be fairies, they can be aliens, whatever you're into, but it also can be symbols, and it can be synchronicities, and it can also be part of your community. So like when you're seeing 1111, it's not just like, oh, it's 1111. It's like, okay, what am I feeling right now? And how does the universe speak to us? Because the universe isn't going to come down and teabag you. The universe speaks through math and science and synchronicities and symbols and messages and dreams, right? When we stop looking to those places to guide us, we become the nothing. So when all those things don't matter anymore, life doesn't matter. And no wonder why you feel sad and like, who gives a shit? Why even try? Right? And in the Neverending Story, we talk about the naming, which is all about language. It's all about reauthoring ourselves. So when Atreyu, part of his hero's journey is to find the Empress, kill Gamork, and name the childlike Empress, give her the new name. That's an act of creation and authority within itself. And it symbolizes the reclamation of your voice, how you're presenting in the world, how you're showing up in the world. And it's about rewriting your story, your narrative. Who gives a shit about what everyone else's book says? That's why it's so fucked up to compare yourself online to other people who are literally living in totally different dimensions of reality than you. And this is also about the central feeling of aliveness, right? Regaining that like we did when we were children. And this is also, like I said, it's about confronting the shadow and the responsibility that you have about confronting your shadow all the time, right? That's the Gamork. That's the fatalistic voice in the Neverending Story. And it shows how despair rationalizes inaction. It's like, oh, why even try? You know, it's like someone who's obese, let's just say, and they're having horrible health problems. And they're like, I've already tried everything. I fail. What's the point of even trying? That's Gamork. That's the shadow inside of yourself, right? But when we show up and we play and we create and we have that childlike wonder and that openness, and we use that as a spiritual practice, and that's what I've been kind of doing is as I'm creating this new renovation, this rebrand, this kind of glow up of KBMFC Wellness, I'm coming at it like a childlike innocence. It's like, that's why we right now feel so much nostalgia. I don't know if you're feeling it out there, but I'm feeling like this nostalgic energy. It's like, oh, I wish I could go back to the 80s and the 90s. Things were so simple and things were so easy. And it's like, it probably wasn't simple and easy, but this was a time in our lives where in our minds, it was simple and easy because we were always creating in that childlike energy. So as I'm creating the glow up of KBMC Wellness, I'm not choosing boring colors. I am like, okay, how do we Lisa Frankify this room? How do we put fucking unicorns in the wall that doesn't feel like you're in a 5-year-old's bedroom? It's like a, you know, a new and improved adult unicorn energy. How do I use that childlike energy to create a space that when someone walks in, they get this rush of serotonin and dopamine and they don't know what it is. They can't put their finger on it, but it just makes them feel like something they've never felt before. And I cannot wait for you guys to see what I've created and what I've done because it's been so much work, but it hasn't felt like work because I've been in a constant state of play and excitement. And that has helped me so much not feel that dead hum of nothingness, right? The film and the book Neverending Story also really is about that playfulness and that wonderment. And esoterically, retaining this childlike receptivity is a path to contact with the numinous and creative sources of God energy. And I think that the Neverending Story really aligns with people my age that feel that dead inside energy. It's because we as modern adults are living in routine. We're letting all these numbing distractions take our energy away from us and literally suck the soul out of us. And we're constantly in a spiral and a whirlpool of fear and shame, which are the same conditions in the Neverending Story that let the nothingness spread. And don't you see how the nothingness right now is spreading all over the world, right? People are just giving up left and right. And it's so sad and it's so scary to watch. And really at the end, the movie, the book, it really remedies the hero's journey. So remember, it's about reclamation, imagination, naming one's life, undertaking meaningful risks, accepting help from people who have gone before you and have done the things that you desire to do, and accepting that help, and then always being in a state of childlike creativity. And some practical things that I really gained from this, and remember, I've watched this movie my whole life, and I rewatched it last week, and that's why I'm talking about it. So if you're not understanding what I'm saying, you're probably dumb. I'm sorry. You should probably read a book. But if you're a smarty pants, like I know you are, the practical lessons that you can gain from reading this book or watching this movie really are about how can you reignite your imaginative practices in your daily routines. Maybe it's writing, maybe it's creating, maybe it's artwork, maybe it's daydreaming. And renaming your story maybe in your journal. So maybe like you give your journal a new title, like, you know, Operation Ambitchious or Level the Fuck Up or, whatever. And then you do these little small things every day to embody that energy of the thing that you name, right? And this is also, now here we're going to get into the real shit. So how do we do this, right? So like I said, get a notebook, get a journal. Maybe you get one that's really beautiful, right? Like it looks like the Necronomicon, or it looks like, Lord of the Rings, like a bound leather book with like jewels on the outside. There's so many cool things now that you can purchase online that give you that energy, right? And you name that book like Katie's Journey to the Next Level, or maybe you name it Falcor, and maybe you name it, Next Level Ambitious. I don't know what it is for you, but come up with something great. The next thing is you choose to take a palpable, pithy quest like Atreyu. So it's one long, meaningful, creative project that has clear-cut intention. You give it the attention that it needs to grow from a seedling into a massive oak tree, and you know which steps that you have to take to reverse engineer the things that you desire for your life. I've been teaching this a lot in my app, and it has been helping women so much go to the next level. It's incredible. And the same things that I'm teaching you right now, and the same things that I go deeper in on the app in my coaching, has helped me in the first quarter of 2026 make more money than I did all last year in my business. And last year, my income was probably one of the best years of my business to date. And all I did was just do this, what I teach in the app and what I'm teaching you right now. Then from there, when you have your project, you know your goal, you know what you have to do, you're going to do a daily or even a weekly, depending on what you're creating. You're going to face a small fear, which is trial by action, just like what Atreyu went through in his hero's journey. And like I said, if it makes you want to shit your pants, it makes your butthole pucker, or it makes you want to puke, that means you're on the right path. That means that's what you should be going towards, right? This is also a good way to help you get out of that energy of nothing, is to reconnect with communities that nurtured you, that are your biggest cheerleaders, that help you grow and that bring you wonderment and help you feel expansive. So like at KBMFC Wellness, all the women that are at KBMFC Wellness, we all know what we're trying to do. We all know each other's goals, whether it's a health wellness goal, or it's a business goal, or it's a relationship goal, or whatever. We all know what we're all working on in there, and we all cheerlead and help each other out. And then we give each other advice that is really, really, really worthwhile, right? So when you do all the things that I just said, and you use that never-ending story energy to kind of frame the inner death of your old self as a loss of imagination and authorship, and you take it and you turn it into that hero's journey, and you don't use it as an escapist fantasy, because escapism is a whole other thing too, but you use it as inner and outer work of creation. And you say, okay, if I'm in a creative energy, then I am made in the image and the likeness of God, then I am like God, right? Because that's why God put you here, to be a piece of him, a piece of the universe expressing itself in a three-dimensional reality. That is the pathway back to feeling alive. truly. Okay. So I'm going to give you like some action steps right now. So this is what we're going to do over the next couple days, weeks, months, even the next couple of years. This is what I want you to do. And once you get this as a habit, you adopt this as your reality, you are going to go to places you never thought were possible. You probably did when you were a kid, but as you get older, you said, I can't do that. So I'm going to give you that energy back. So this is what we're going to do. The first thing is we are going to turn all of our truths into a life that feels big, meaningful, and devoted to the hero's journey. And we're going to do that with daily, weekly, monthly actions. Okay. So you know the goal. And then you have to say to yourself, who do I have to be to attain this goal? What are the levers that I have to pull to get me closer to this goal? Is the thing I'm about to think, say, or do getting me further away or closer to the goal I have in mind? And if it doesn't, then you don't fucking do it. I don't care what it is. I don't care whose feelings you hurt. No is a complete sentence. Then we're going to reclaim imagination on a daily basis. So that could be a 10, 20, 30 hour, minute, whatever. It's going to be a creative practice that you can do every day, whether it's art, writing, sketching, dream mapping, story play. Like right now, I am doing the finishing touches on my wellness center. So that's like bringing in like fanciful, whimsical decor and weird things that make people go like, what the fuck is that in the corner, right? Just like these fun little oddities that just make your brain just feel alive, right? And you don't edit it and you don't overthink it and you don't care about the outcome. You just create like a child, right? Like when kids are playing Barbies, they're not like, oh, I have to do this thing with my Barbies to have an outcome. Like, you know what you want to do, but you don't worry about the outcome. You just say, I don't care about the outcome, because it's not about the outcome. It's not about the destination. It's about the goal, right? It's about the journey every day, what I'm doing to get myself closer to that destination, right? Then, like I said, you got to give yourself a name and you got to give yourself a theme, just like giving the Empress a name in the childlike Empress in the Neverending Story, which is you're going to pick a short title or a little life motto or like a little tagline for your next creative project. It could be, like the curious builder or the seeker of the wild garden. Like if you're a garden hoe, like I am, right? And then you're going to write 3 behaviors that embody that life motto, that tagline, or that title. Then you're going to choose the visible quest. So the action around this is to commit to one long-term, meaningful project. That could be writing a book, creating a garden, having a radical career pivot, or finding the man of your dreams, or maybe getting a divorce and leaving a relationship that is just not working for you. It's not healthy for you. Maybe it's toxic. And then you're going to define the first 3 mini milestones and put them on your calendar. So it's like, by this date, I will have, by this date, I am, by this date, I will, whatever. Okay. And then when all that is said and done, you have to truly embrace the initiatory trials. What does that mean? That means every week, your action is going to be about doing one thing that stretches you on beyond your comfort zone, which could be a public talk, or it could be a cold plunge, or a difficult conversation that you've been putting off. And then I want you to treat each thing like this is an initiation, not a failure, even if it's messy. So I always say, do things messy, right? I create and then I worry about how I'm going to do it after. It's when we get into the opposite, that's what fucks us up and brings us back to the nothing. Then we're going to name and we're going to narrate our life. So the action around this is weekly or daily journal entries that retell the day or the week as a mythic episode. And I've been doing this. I'm telling you guys, this is what has made me so much money and has given me so much joy and has made me feel so alive again. And I haven't felt like this in such a long time. I was actually on my app the other day and I was talking about this with the girls. I'm like, I really haven't felt this alive in so long. And it's so exciting to feel this way again. But what I've been doing is at the end of every month, well, every day I've been giving myself a value for the day on a scale of 1 to 10. And at the end of the week, I tally up that whole week. And if I get, like, let's just say the highest value you can get for the week is 70 because it's 10 a day, right? Is the highest number. Let's just say I scored a 62 for the week. I have to then go back and say, what did I do that wasn't in alignment with the goal that I have? And then the next week you iterate, you try to get better at the thing. So it's like, okay, let's just say you're on a health and wellness journey. And you're like, I'm going to do 5 days a week, 1 hour a day of rucking with a weighted vest on. And then you only do 3. Then what you say is, okay, I got 3 rucks in this week. Next week, I'm going to shoot for 5. And then maybe next week you do 4. And the following week you do 5. And then you have that perfect 10 in your day. And then you can keep building and building and building from there, right? And then what I've been doing is at the end of my month, I look at everything that I did and I say to myself, here are all the things that I won. And here's where I can do better. Here's all the lessons I learned. And here are all the people that helped me get to that place. And then through that, that's going to train your authorship. It's going to train your agency, and it's going to give you the self-confidence and the self-esteem that you need to be great. Because let me tell you right now, guys, it is really easy in this day and age to be a mediocre motherfucker. Most people, I'd say 98% of the human population, are just living like I was talking about, zombie apocalypse energy. But when you name it and you can claim it, that is going to make all the meaning come alive in your life. And you're always going to feel like you are the hero in your life every day. And this is so important. The next step is to build your allies and build your mentors. So just like Atreyu had all these different characters in the Neverending Story that brought in different things, it is so important if you are feeling, I was talking to a girl the other day who wants to do mentorship with me, and she's like, I'm not ready to do mentorship because I just feel so burnt out and I feel so overwhelmed and I'm just like, ugh. And I'm like, yeah, but that's when you should do mentorship. That's when you should do coaching, when you feel that way, because the coach or the mentor is going to tell the coachable person or the mentee, hey, this is why you're feeling burnt out. And I'm going to give you all the ways to not feel this way. So it's almost like the opposite. Like you're like, oh my God, I'm so burnt out and I'm so overwhelmed. Like I can't take on one more thing. It's like, no, that's when you have to take on the thing. That's when you have to hire the mentor. That's when you have to surround yourself with allies, right? Support systems. So the action around this is to schedule one intentional conversation monthly or weekly or biweekly or daily with someone who is going to encourage your growth. That can be a peer group. That can be a community. That can be a coach, a mentor. Right? And you can create a Falcor list, which is a list of people who bring luck, who bring hope, who bring excitement. Like every time I have a conversation with someone, they're like, holy shit, Katie, you make me feel like I can do anything. And that's like one of my gifts. But it's not that I'm lying to the person. I really do believe that with the right people in your life and the right attitude, you can do anything. You just have to have that grit and that courage and the determination. And when you get scared, you do it anyways, right? You have to really get out and bust out of that comfort zone. So you can create a little list. You can call it your Falcor list and be like, here are all the people that when I speak to them or I'm in their presence, they just give me so much energy. They just fill my cup. And then, by the way, I didn't put this on my notes, but get rid of all the people that are draining you. You know, like what's the fucking point? Get rid of all the gamorks. Get rid of all the people that are just like, what's the point? Who cares? We're going to die anyway. It's like, I'm the opposite. It's like, yeah, I'm going to die. That's why I'm going to fucking make my life epic and fucking iconic, you know? And then the next thing is we are going to protect creative spaces and creative rituals. So the action around this is to create daily rituals, which I talk about so much in my book. I talk about this so much in the Ambitchious app and even with my mentorship clients, is creating daily rituals, whether it's like meditating in the morning, journaling, doing morning pages, going for, a walk, working out, maybe lighting a candle, having a special tea, grounding work, imagination work, free writing, and treat this as a non-negotiable aspect of your hero's journey. And then the next step is we have to reduce anyone that gives us the nothing energy. Okay, so we're just going to call that the nothing ick. So anyone, and this is the action step, anyone that is sucking your life dry, And this could also be auditing the things that you're allowing into your life. This could be auditing media consumption, social media, the news, people around you that are just low vibrational nihilists. They're a bunch of gamorks, right? This could be just like hanging around with a bunch of muggles that just are not fucking magical people. Like, I only hang with magical bitches. I only hang with unicorns. I don't fuck around with people who are just, in the shit pit, crabs in a bucket. Woe is me. Who cares? Why even try? Fuck that. So this could be removing 1 to 3 or maybe even more, depending on when you get done with your audit, how many of these things are in your life. But this could be auditing, passive doom scrolling or negative news, and replacing these things with one nourishing input. So that could be reading a book or listening to music or doing hobbies or crafts. And then the next step is to serve the world with what you are creating. So God gave you all these gifts and talents, and you're literally slapping your creator in the fucking face because you're not using these gifts and talents to not only serve the world, but also when you serve the world with your gifts and talents, you're going to make money. So many of you motherfuckers are walking around like, give me money and then I'll give you service. But no, you have to give service first and give value and use your God-given talents and gifts to create. So the action step around this is to find small ways that your project helps others. So that could be teaching, donating, exhibiting, sharing progress, motivation, inspiration, whatever it is, because purpose grows when creation touches others. The more people that you touch with your creation, whatever that is, it's just going to exponentially grow. And your reimbursement is money or joy or happiness or whatever. And then next step is we're going to practice reauthoring after we face a setback. Because I'm telling you right now, if you watch Neverending Story, Atreyu fucking lost Artak, his horse, in the fucking mud. This poor bastard. I mean, I think I literally had an existential crisis after I saw that horse drown in the mud. Fuck. That's why I hate movies and shit where the animal dies. I cannot watch it. I always say to Matt, like, is there any animal that dies in this movie? If he's like, yes, I'm like, nope. Yellowstone, the show Yellowstone, in the first episode, a horse dies and they have to shoot it. And I'm like, fuck this. I'm not watching this. I didn't watch Yellowstone for like 3 years. Everyone's like, you got to watch Yellowstone. I'm like, nope, the horse dies. Sorry. Nope. Don't fucking old yeller me. Don't wear the red fern fucking grows me. I will kick your ass. Don't fucking land before time me. Fuck you. Okay. I do not want to watch it. If the goddamn mom dies or the animal dies or Bambi no, just talking about it, I'm starting to get upset. Okay. So you're gonna go through setbacks. You're gonna have grief and loss and horrible shit fuck days. Okay. But the action around this is after every setback, after every shortcoming, after every downfall, you're going to create or write a short reframing. So what this teaches, how it shapes the quest, and what the next tiny step is to keep the momentum. Because I believe that there is no failure. I believe that there is only lessons, right? So let's just say you go bankrupt. The only way that it's a failure is if you allow yourself to fucking go bankrupt again. But if you're like, okay, I learned something so hard from that experience and it was so difficult and embarrassing, I will never allow anything like that to ever happen to me again. And this is why, and this is how I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen. And then you do the opposite of what you did before, and you become a money manifester, or you become an incredible person who, puts their money into things that just grow more money babies and create more wealth and abundance in your life, right? You focus on getting your credit score high, or putting money into a bank account, or putting money into the S&P 500 stock. I don't know what it is, but you do the opposite, right? Because you learned the only way that things like that are wasted is if you don't learn. Okay. And before I go on, I want to talk about our first ever sponsor, Dr. Sazia of Numi Aesthetics. She is our first ever podcast sponsor. And I've been taking you guys through my recreation of myself through the Meno Reno, which is the program that Dr. Sazia and I created together. And I recently had a CO2 laser facial, which was the most life-changing thing I've ever had. I cannot wait for my next one. I know that sounds crazy because people are like, what the hell, Katie? Like, you just lasered your face and like burned the top layer of your skin off. And I was like, yes. And it was very enjoyable. And my skin is shining, as little orphan Annie said, like the top of the Chrysler building. And Dr. Sazia just gets it. She knows how to take care of women's skin of all different ages and ethnicities and places in our lives. And I just love how she's not the type of aesthetics doctor that's just like, let me pump your face full of stuff, even though she could do that if she wants to, but she is so conservative. And it's really just about fine tuning and tweaking the parts of you that maybe don't feel so fresh right now. So I am taking you guys on that journey with me and Numi Aesthetics for the Meno Reno. And if you mention this podcast to Dr. Sazia when you reach out to her, she's going to do a free consultation with you so you can address all the things that you are not feeling so happy about when it comes to your body and your face and how you're showing up and presenting in the world. But she's also going to give you 15% off your first experience with Numi Aesthetics. And if you want to reach out to her, all of the information is going to be in the show notes. Cool. Thank you, Dr. Sazia. I love you. I don't have a double chin anymore. See? I mean, it could be better, but it's a start, right? She's like, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, okay, give me a couple weeks, girl. Give me a couple weeks. And if you want to follow along on the Meno Reno experience with me and Dr. Sazia, head on over to Instagram. And I've been taking you guys on that journey. And if you haven't already, go to kbmc.com and sign up for our free newsletter, because I talk all about my experience with Dr. Sazia there in our emails that go out. Okay, so remember, this is so important. I can't tell you how more important this topic that I'm talking about today is, because, and I'm going to get weird for a second, I'll get a little sad, but do you know that between the ages of 35 and 55 is where most women commit suicide? Now, I know for a fact that there is a direct correlation with hormonal fluctuations and just like the underlying stress that we as women are all in during that time in our lives. But it doesn't have to be this way. Okay. It really, truly doesn't have to be this way. And when we were children, we felt so alive because childhood was just organized differently, right? It was organized differently biologically, physiologically, psychologically, socially. And our childhood, on average, naturally amplified the conditions that produce the feeling of aliveness, which is, novelty, constant discovery, curiosity, right? Everything is so new and dopamine is flowing and attention is lighting up frequently. And you're always having like new experiences, which equals sustained curiosity and reward. You were always playing, you were always imagining, right? Play is low stakes creation and exploration, and that's going to keep intrinsic motivation at an all-time high. We also were very present, we were focused, and we were very intentional on everything that we were doing. So when we were playing, we were playing. We didn't care what anything else was around us, right? We never got into those ruminative loops, right? Like you could get in trouble, your mom could yell at you, and then like 5 minutes later, you're just like happy again, because you don't get into like, my mom just yelled at me and and this may happen. And then it's like, no, you don't. That part of our grooves of our brain haven't even solidified yet. And we also have fewer perceived responsibilities. So unless you were raised in a very chronically traumatic, stressful, chaotic environment, which I know some of us were, but when we had less chronic stress and chaos and we had fewer role obligations, we had more free, overflowing, abundant amounts of energy because we were always getting ready to explore and create. we were always engaged, right? Children move, they make noise, they use their senses, they use their voice. No one's telling, even if our parents are like, shh, you can't yell. We were like, fuck you, making all these noises and stuff. It's like, I'm going to start bringing that back. And I noticed that like I do it a lot lately. Like I'll just be like walking in the house and I'll be like, meow. Maybe I have a little bit of tism or I don't know. Maybe I'm stimming, but Matt laughs at me like, sometimes I'll make this fart noise. Do you ever see like that show Eastbound and Down where the guy like makes the fart noise? He's like, "Brr, how long have you been with her?" Like sometimes I'll just walk around the house and I'll be like, "Brr, how long have you been with her?" And Matt like laughs his ass off. And I was talking to Matt the other day. I was laying in bed and he was tucking me in because I like to get tucked in like a 4-year-old, obviously. And I was like, hey, do you remember when you were a little kid and you'd go to like slumber parties and you guys would like piss your pants laughing over nothing? I go, what did you used to laugh about? He goes like, oh, we used to like fart and like, Dutch oven each other, or we just like punch each other in the balls. Which I was like, okay, I don't have balls, so I don't know why that's funny. But okay, cool. And like, when you were a little kid, you just laughed about fucking nothing. Like, when was the last time you did that? We also had lower fear of failure because we hadn't failed a lot yet. And we just didn't care. We were just like, oh, whatever. And we didn't have a lot of shame. So a lot of children experiment without shame, without harsh criticism. So they take bigger risks. And those bigger risks are going to give you self-confidence, self-esteem. It's going to spark your growth, and it's going to give you pride. We also had rich social scaffolding. What does that mean? It means that caregivers provided validation and encouragement and safe boundaries. And, people always told you like, play, think outside the box, create, draw, and like, who's telling us to do that now? Not many people. I mean, there is a reason why there is a whole world that exists out there for adult sleepaway camps. I know. Isn't that crazy? I kind of want to go to one. Maybe that's like the next thing that we're going to be doing. But, there's these adult sleepaway camps. I'm actually working with a client right now on creating a company around these adult sleepaway camps, which is going to be so cool. But the reason why people want that is because they're missing that feeling of just being like, okay, I'm going to like take a bag and I'm going to go to camp and I'm going to do hobbies and I'm going to fuck around with people and there's not going to be any pressure on me to work and create. It's just like play. And I think that that's the biggest thing that we're really, really missing in this day and age. We also had imaginative identity. When we were children, we would try on roles and we would try on possibilities, right? And when we do that, it gives us like a sense of self, and it also gives us like these little wins, right? I used to love to play um, business when I was a kid, or I would love to have a store, right? And do like your little self-checkout counter and all that. Or I would love to, this is something I did. This just popped in my head, but I would go and buy penny candy from this little store called Girly's Variety. And then I would go to school and I would like sell it for like 10 times the amount. Cause it's like supply and demand, baby. You want some fucking hot balls, you're going to pay at least $1 for one when I paid 5 cents, right? So I always had that entrepreneurial spirit because I proved to myself at a young age, like, oh, I can take this thing at 5 cents and I can 10x it and I can charge people $1 for it or whatever. And I can make money. And I would go home from school with a fucking pocket full of ones. And I didn't work at the strip club, right? So those things are so important. It also helps with neuroplasticity because as we get older, our brains start to become more rigid and more grooved. But when we do new neural things, right? Excuse me, when we do new novel things, our neural networks start to fire and wire together, and we create new neural networks, which makes our brains more neuroplastic, right? More malleable, which can also make learning feel more effortless and make it feel more rewarding. We had rituals every day. We got up with wonderment, right? We would watch our Saturday morning cartoons, eating our cereal, and everything just felt so, I remember getting up in the morning and watching like She-Ra and My Little Pony and Punky Brewster and fucking Pee-wee's Playhouse and He-Man and like all these cool things. And like, they just don't have that shit anymore. And I think that that's why a lot of us are just losing that childlike self, right? And the way that we do this is we show up every day and we re-embody what it's like to be a child. And that is my biggest takeaway, guys, with this whole podcast is I wanted this to be a masterclass on how to be a little kid again, because that's where we're going to have our most incredible experiences as an adult. So when we build the rituals of wonderment, when we have these special novel experiences in our lives and we take pressure off of ourselves to be perfect or what everyone else wants us to be, which is the persona like Carl Jung talks about in Jungian psychology, then we can step into the light and we can become Atreyu. We can stop the nothingness in our lives and we can enter the kingdom of heaven, which is available here in our three-dimensional reality. Okay. So if you're not living a life of joy and happiness and freedom and excitement, it's no one else's fault except your own, because I'm literally giving you this information for free on a fucking silver platter. Okay. Now, before I go, I want to just say there's a couple movies that I really love, and there's a couple books that I really love that you can listen to or read or watch that is also going to embody this energy. So obviously Neverending Story. Lord of the Rings is huge. Star Wars. There's a movie called Whiplash. It's about a drummer. That is an amazing, such an inspirational movie. Movies like Rocky, The Matrix, Gladiator, Braveheart. And some books that I really love are The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho and Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, which are all about the hero's journey. So if you want to dive a little bit deeper into this whole genre, then those are some of my favorites. And if you have some favorites that you would like to share with me that I should know about, please email me. I would love to know, because I'm always in search of more of that kind of energy. And I hope that this really got into your brain, because I'm telling you, this is why we all feel like we're just walking fucking zombies. And I don't know about you, but I don't think that God put me here to eat, sleep, piss, shit, fuck, and fight with people. I think it's just so much bigger than that. I really truly believe that. And I hope that you do too. And if you didn't before, I hope that you do after listening to this podcast. So in the meantime, if you desire to work with me and you just listen to this podcast, you need a mentee, or you want to be a mentee and you want a mentor, reach out to me. Go to kbmfc.com. All this information will be also in the show notes, and reach out to me so we can get on a complimentary discovery call to see if working together is a good fit. Or if you don't want that much pressure to work in a mentorship container, join the app. You can also purchase your spot on the app on kbmfc.com. And if you're local-ish in the New England area, reach out to me when KBMFC Wellness gets the glow up that it so deserves. I want you to be part of it. We have some incredible things planned. I cannot wait. I cannot wait for you guys to see what we have planned. But we are going to be doing our podcast live in front of a studio audience at KBMFC Wellness once a week, which is so exciting. I cannot wait for you guys to be part of it. And if not, if you're perfect in every way, God bless you. I'm really happy for you, but I doubt that that's the case. So if you're ready to take your life to the next level and be the hero in your story, go to kbmfc.com, reach out to me and see if we can work together. And in the meantime, don't forget to stay ambitious. Don't forget to share this with all of the HBICs that you know all across the globe. And I will see you next Tuesday.